A few weeks ago, I was scrolling Instagram, ad, capybara onsen. Finally, something from somebody I follow. Yet another ad. Ooh, do they really have Coffee Mate in this flavor? Yet more ads. Polly Pocket. Polly Pocket's back? More ads. Stop. Back up. Enhance it. Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Does this couple look familiar to you? They look very familiar. Where have I seen them before? Do I know them? And then it came to me. Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy and John F. Kennedy Jr. Yes, they look exactly. Yes, they bear a passing. These are models. These are models that look exactly like them. Well, not exactly. Something's a little off, but they look like them. They're dressed kind of like them, but it's not them. So this is a fashion campaign, a fashion lookbook from the apparel company Sporty and Rich. The name is very, very literal. I don't know much about them, but I'm assuming from the name they are capitalizing on the old money look. You know, the old money look that we've talked about ad nauseum on this channel. So having seen the ghost influencers, they're called, the homage to the actual couple, I started looking at photos of the actual couple. I guess they're paparazzi photos or event photos. Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy, I never thought about her in the 90s, but I like the way she dresses. It's so simple yet elegant and timeless, and that sent me down a rabbit hole of just looking at all her photos. I did a deep dive of all the clothes she's ever worn. I would have to say that I have a giant girl crush on Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy. May she rest in peace. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are not specifically going to talk about Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy because I feel like I can't do her justice. I'm not a luxury designer person. I can't tell you what is the Yohji Yamamoto 96 fall winter collection. I can't tell you what the Calvin Klein 93 spring summer collection is. I don't own any designer clothes myself. I don't own any designer handbags, nor do I ever plan to. I'm a Old Navy girl. In my fancier moments, I'm a J. Crew girl, and sometimes I indulge in a very, very good sale at Nordstrom. I purchased some socks at Nordstrom. So, you know, we could be a little fancy here, but deep down, we're still clearance rack at Target and clearance rack at Kmart. But I will take you on a journey through the 90s. Now, this is a segment of fashion in the 90s that, having lived and played in the 90s as a 90s kid, I am not too familiar with, because my 90s was neon and Saved by the Bell, Animaniacs, and Batman, the animated series. That was my 90s. This is a sophisticated segment of the 90s that completely passed me by as a kid in elementary school. Now as an adult, I can appreciate it. But that is not to say that this look from the 90s, it's not all glamour, it's not all cosmopolitan sophistication or model off-duty sophistication. It does have a dark side, very thin, dark side, and we will get into that. But for now, my name is Teresa. I'm a 90s kid. I love everything about the 90s. And I also love minimalist clothing. I'm into minimalist clothing right now. So let's just put the two together. The 90s and minimalism. 90s minimalism. Roll it! The moment I sit down here and I kind of fix my makeup up a little, I have to sneeze. When I was a kid, a 90s kid, bear in mind, the 90s were literally my childhood. Like, I started kindergarten in 1989 and I ended the 90s in high school. So the 90s were literally my elementary and middle school and 1 year of my high school years. So I absorbed all that culture, and I've always had my eye out for fashion, and I of course knew who Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy was, just vaguely. You know, it's a world that I wasn't really interested in. If it didn't have JTT, and if it wasn't in a Delia catalog, or if it wasn't in YM or 17, I wasn't interested, but I knew who she was, and I've seen her wedding photo, you know, the famous wedding photo, and I thought, very cute, and that's for the adults. 90s minimalism existed out there somewhere, but that was in the adult world, and in my world it was saturated with bright Lisa Frank-esque colors. And if you were to ask me as a 90s kid, would I ever dress in 90s minimalism? Would I ever dress in monochromatic looks, in a slip dress? Not a chance, not in a million years. I wanted to dress like Cher. I wanted to dress like Kelly Kapowski or anybody from Friends, or maybe even anybody from Melrose Place. I really loved Melrose Place at the time, more so than 90210. Maybe I've also wanted to dress like Xena. 90s minimalism was not anywhere on my radar or must-buy list. Now being older, much older, I look back at the old runway photos of 90s minimalism. Donna, Helmut, Calvin Klein, Givenchy, Tom Ford, all those designers and all their runway shows. I like minimalist clothes. And I think that all has to do with getting older and perhaps trying to envision myself as an old lady and just planning my senior citizen clothes. So I mentioned before in past videos that as I get older and as I creep into senior citizenhood, I want to dress like a dystopian grandma, like I stepped off the set of Blade Runner or I stepped off the set of Gattaca. And I am especially interested in Japanese minimalist clothing. I'm especially interested in dressing like Rei Kawakubo or Yohji Yamamoto, you know, like their whole look. They started minimalist fashion in the 80s, and that's saying something. That's shock value in the 80s, the bright and colorful 80s. And ever since I did my stealth wealth video, my very polarizing stealth wealth video, mind you, I've been researching a lot of stealth wealth designer brands, and the Row was one of them. The Row is Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen's designer line. It's all high quality minimalist look, and I gotta say, I like it. I really like it. It's a little out of my price range right now. It's a lot out of my price range. In fact, I don't think in my lifetime I will ever buy anything from the Row. I'm just not the type of person that could drop that amount of money on a piece of clothing. But I can drop that amount of money at a J. Crew sale, and I can drop that amount of money definitely on an Old Navy sale. So we're not getting the quality. We're not getting 100% Italian cashmere or whatever at the Row. But I have to say, I like these looks, and I could see myself as an old lady wearing these looks, and I would look just as cool as this man or this lady. So that's why I'm going for a minimalist look for when I am an elderly person. And I think it's very funny that I'm suddenly really into the Row. When I was younger, in high school, I was very, very thin and I could fit into children's clothes. I would sometimes buy clothes from the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen line at Walmart. And now as an adult, I'm still looking at their clothes, except they moved far, far up market from Walmart. So I think things come full circle here. So as with any fashion movement, especially in the case of 90s minimalism, you would have to look back at the former decade. You'll have to look back at the bright and opulent 80s, the big shoulder pads, the neon colors or pastel colors, the bold, vivid makeup, the slice of blush on one's cheek, the magenta lips, the big hair, the models of the 80s, the glamazon supermodels like Cindy Crawford and Claudia Schiffer, bold and colorful and opulent. It screams capitalism, excess, strength. So with fashion, once a particular look or a particular vibe has gone on for a long time, has reigned supreme, then it's time for the pendulum to swing, and it swings wildly. Where there was once glamazon supermodel with big hair and broad shoulders and long legs that kind of stomp down the catwalk, the power stomp with power suits, then the pendulum swings to the exact opposite. And then we get rid of big shoulders, we get rid of big bold colors and big bold makeup. We have a more neutral color palette. We have more of a slicked back, limps down, kind of a wet hair look. The 80s body ideal, broad shoulders, strong, big blonde women. I think that pretty much sums it up. The big blonde woman. Then we go to 90s minimalism. Things become much more streamlined, subtler. Now we have waif-like supermodels like Kate Moss ushering in the era of as a writer, it pains me that I can't say the right words for the conversation we're having here. On YouTube, you kind of have to say lesser words instead of the right words. If you want to play in the playground, you got to follow the rules, even though the rules are, We're going to call it H chic. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. H chic. Everybody was thin. Okay, that was a body ideal. Everybody was freaking thin, rail thin. Kate Moss, I think she's very beautiful and she's probably naturally thin. You know, as a kid, as an elementary school kid, I was also naturally thin. But because I absorbed a lot of this, you know, toxic body image in the 90s, that was an age, right? That was an age. I mean, I feel like having looked through all of fashion history, a lot of body ideals in fashion history was pretty toxic. Extreme corsets in the 1910s, that was pretty toxic. But in the 90s, we had a time. But in the 90s, if you were a girl, I don't know how you escaped undamaged. And nowadays, you kind of have to undo all the damage that's done to your psyche about your own body image or other people's body image that came from the 90s, unfortunately. See, I talk about the 90s on this channel like it was the days of wine and roses, or in my case, the days of Squeeze It and Lunchables. It was good times, but at the same time, there was darkness lurking under the 90s, darkness in the form of hunger for the sake of fashion, and we'll get into that later. In the meantime, unfortunately, 90s minimalism, as much as I appreciate it now, I see the beauty behind minimalist clothes. A lot of people, depending on your taste, you may not see any beauty behind it. You may think it's boring. You may think it's stark. You may think it's even dystopian. It's not helping that in the 90s, all the models were required to be extremely, extremely thin. But I do appreciate, for instance, the simplicity behind it. The aspect that if you look closer, you'll notice a lot of beauty to the materials. If you look at the details and stitching, like the care for stitching or the various contrasts and textures, is all about the details. Back to my rabbit hole of Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy. To the untrained eye, to my 90s kid untrained eye, I thought she dressed elegantly but kind of boring. You know, I was into bright, colorful stuff. She was the early predecessor of that minimalist capsule wardrobe. She had the black shirt in every single cut, every single texture, every single material. So she had a lot of clothes to seem like she didn't have a lot of clothes. They were all tailored, all fitted to her body. 90s minimalism and normcore, the two overlap, because normcore on the surface may seem very plain, very boring, but you have to look closer. It invites you to look closer at the texture, at the quality of the material, at the fit. It's all about the fit. It's a stripped down aesthetic. Wardrobe essentials is very basic. Basic tee, 90s straight leg, high-waisted jeans, some kind of boot, sneaker, strappy minimalist heel, minimal makeup, minimal jewelry, leather jackets, oversized, maybe a vest, tailored trousers, tailored jackets, the long slinky skirts, a maximum of 3 colors, no more than 3 colors. You can't hide beneath an armful of bangles or 80s makeup or anything excessive. So you're very much naked. Your clothes really depend upon quality of the materials and tailoring. So in many ways, this is the predecessor of stealth wealth. This is actually just stealth wealth and quiet luxury, but in the 90s. I don't recall seeing any of this in California, in Southern California. We were more relaxed and casual and a little bit more colorful. We're more 90s neon beach, like it could just be a Southern California beach vibe thing. I'm thinking that the 90s minimalism look was more of a cosmopolitan New York City look. This 90s minimalism, if it were to take off anywhere, I would assume it would take off in the young urban professional sector of New York City, or just with models, but I didn't really see anybody actually wearing it. And it's probably because the looks we saw were from celebrities. The looks that's documented were from celebrities. Everybody just dressed very normal in the 90s. If you consider the norm had been colorful and playful and bold and glamorous, like everything was done up glamorously to just strip everything back, have sleek hair, kind of wet hair, have like a satin slip dress instead of the 80s prom dress look or big, bold workwear, to go from powerful 80s pumps to a strappy kitten heel. 90s minimalism was a shocking turn. And this was also a time when models were doing a little nip slip. It was considered kind of avant-garde. This entire shock value scene. It was meant to be anti-fashion. It was meant to be a reaction against the established, bold and colorful looks of the 80s. But it makes sense in a decade of grunge, of being anti-establishment. There's a general vibe, especially amongst caricatures of models on TV, of being kind of apathetic. It was cool not to care. That was the general vibe of the 90s. I have to sum that up. That was definitely the general vibe of the 90s. I believe I read the same theme in Chuck Klosterman's The 90s. You were cool if you didn't care. You had to affect this like this kind of bored, lazy tone. That's cool. Awesome. The attitude of Daria, or the attitude of an Inside Out, discuss. Whatever her attitude was, that was basically the attitude, not of everybody in the 90s, but the cool kids in the 90s. Apathetic. And I feel like this whole 90s minimalism look also had a tinge of apathy. The whole model off-duty vibe. You just got off the plane, you're dressed very plain, very minimal, but you look awesome. You don't have any makeup on, you look awesome. Who knew if it took you hours to look like you didn't care, but you did care. It's like the whole no makeup look. You want to look like you rolled out of bed, beautiful, or you got off a 8-hour flight, beautiful. 90s minimalism is all about rejecting the, I would say, try too hard 80s. All that glam, all that hair. It reeks of effort, doesn't it? You've been on a 13-hour flight, just wearing a plain white t-shirt, jeans, sneakers. You're a model off duty. You look better than the average person. Which makes me wonder, this look, is it fashion? Or is it because you're just thin? Let's look at my all maroon outfit. And this isn't like anything expensive or anything. This is a sweater that my friend gave me in 2010 at work. She basically said, I bought you a sweater. And I'm like, thank you. What's the occasion? And she's like, I just bought you a sweater. It's from Cotton On. And she presented to me. It was at the bottom of her purse. And I'm still wearing it to this day. And the shirt is from the actual 90s, actually. It was my shirt from the 90s. I was a little heavier in 9th grade. I'm the same weight I am now. I'm 120 pounds right now. In 9th grade, in 1999, I was also 120 pounds. I just noticed that the fact that I said I was a little bit heavier, being 120 pounds, like that's the 90s coming out. A lot of the times I go around nowadays thinking I'm the heaviest I've ever been. That's a toxic 90s body image peeping in. Like, I don't really judge other people's bodies. I judge my own body. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of saying that. Every once in a while, I'm like, I could be thinner. I'm 5'1.5", 120 pounds. I'm still within my BMI. And I did look up the BMI, recently, because I was kind of concerned that I was gaining weight for my height, and what weight would I be considered overweight via my BMI. The fact that I have to do that and look that up, that's probably residual damage. If you were a girl in the 90s, and although nobody would ever say this to you, to your face, although there are some people that would say this to you, to your face back then, is that no matter what weight you are, and even though you may look thin, the toxic message was that you could always be thinner. I recently rewatched Misery. During the 90s, I'm just gonna say it because there's no easy way to sanitize this. When you think about a fat actress, you would think about Kathy Bates, right? And I recently rewatched this movie, and it occurred to me that she wasn't even fat. The only reason why anybody thought she was fat in the 90s was because everybody was so thin, extremely thin. In the early years of Friends, in 95, 96, if you look at Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox, they had some meat to them. But then if you go to the later 90s, and I remember this specifically as 99 because that was when the boat neck tops with the 3/4 sleeves, and on your 3/4 sleeves there could be a little pocket with a bee or a butterfly or something. That look was very in around 98 and 99. That was when Rachel and Monica got so thin, especially Monica. I remember there was some tabloid standing in line in the grocery store called them lollipop heads or something. Their head is now way bigger than their bodies, so now they look like lollipops. I would look at Friends and think that was normal body weight, and I was an elephant, even though I was around 100 pounds. And the fact that if I wore a tank top, there was no bones poking out of my back, or my collarbone was not visible, that made me feel bad. And bear in mind, I did not develop an ED of any kind. But there was a lot of times, especially during middle school, 8th grade, through most of early high school, where I just felt I could be thinner. Somehow I've absorbed the fact in movies and media, just seeing a lot of skinny actresses, but somehow I've absorbed the fact that you can always be skinnier. Even though nobody straight out said to my face, you know, you could lose a little weight. Well, actually, somebody did say that to my face. And you know who it was? It was my first boyfriend. I have not thought about that guy for a long time, like ever. And it's only now as I'm opening this can of worms about weight issues that I remember what he said to me. He said, if you gained weight, I would cut off your fat, followed by if you ever gained weight, I would dump you. And then I think he would just like do something where he would measure my waist, like if it was thin enough for him. So, God. So that relationship didn't last. That was toxic. That was a toxic relationship. Now that I'm remembering this, what did I say in response? I didn't even have a good response. You know when somebody has wronged you and then you think about the good comeback that you would have, but at that moment you're just like stunned. You know what? The jerk store called. He wants you back. This mother has fat shamed me and I wasn't even fat. So I feel like the 90s has fat shamed Kathy Bates and she wasn't even fat. She was just normal weight. Some people are just born big boned and then they get fat shamed and they go through life developing body dysmorphia because some scumbag told them that they were fat. If you're a guy that watches my channel, which I seem to have a lot of, don't you ever call a woman fat. That's not a gentlemanly thing to do. And if you do, they might storytell on you on YouTube to the girls and then we'll all gather around and talk about what a piece of shit you are. And he had yellow fever.